All right, we should be live.
Gotcha on the Twitches.
I see you on the YouTubes.
Oh,
Yas
YouTube.
Tops.
Okay.
There we are.
All right. Let me just cough for.
All right.
All right. Whenever you're ready, Sinstar.
Gentlemen, you know, back when I was single, it was all about double dragging these nuts. Today on.
Didn't know there was going to be a lead up.
Don't lead up through the intro.
Yeah.
Don't dragging these nuts over the intro.
Just messy all around.
Yeah.
Very awkward episode.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Press Me to Cancel, your favorite retro gaming podcast. And this week, I swear, for realsies, yes, we're talking retro games this week. We are going to do something special, though. We're going to talk about, yes, Double Dragon D's Nuts, but also many other arcade beat 'em ups. We're going to
Dungeon Dragon D's Nuts.
Oh boy, here we go. It's not going to end.
In my Cadillac.
Wow.
Your face is a Cadillac and maybe a dinosaur. We are going to compile a short list of the best arcade beat 'em ups and to determine what are the 4 pillars of the genre. The 4 games what you can point somebody to and say, hey, if you're brand new to the genre, go play these 4 games. They define the beat 'em up category in the arcades. That's what we're going to do. Some might call it a Mount Rushmore. Not us, though, because that would be ripping off a few other podcasts. We're going to call it the 4 pillars of the beat 'em up genre because that's more unique. That's what we're going to do. But I'm not going to do this alone.
Really
I'm joined by 2 good friends. Starting with Sinistar. How you doing, Sinistar?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be back for my second week since I moved. And as you can see, the wall is progressing.
I see Optimus there.
Yeah.
It's a nice TV tray.
Yeah. Yeah, TV tray. Oh, and a laptop just leaning over here.
Did you lunar land on that TV tray?
I did.
Wow.
I did.
Do they still make TV trays? Is that still a thing these days?
Yes.
Yes. It's still
Is it?
very much a thing.
Okay.
It's an American thing.
Not like mock chicken, though. And also joined by Chard Monk. How you doing, Chard?
Mechanically separated, Chard Monk is here. I'm ready to go. I'm okay. We celebrated a nice meal yesterday. It was Thanksgiving for all the Americans out there. And it was a good time. And I didn't gain 5 pounds so far. So rocking in the free world. Nice.
Yeah, I'm still confused why your Thanksgiving is on the wrong day of the year. But hey, who am I to say anything as a Canadian? What do I know? There's Thanksgiving should have been in October. That's okay.
We ask that question all the time.
A man who loves Circus Charlie can't be right all the time.
Swear to God, we could be doing the pillars of the circus gaming category, but it'd be a really short episode because it'd just be course.
Don't
Circus
worry,
Charlie.
we got plenty of clowns on this episode.
Yeah. All right, let's get started. So we're just gonna kind of go around and toss out a name of an arcade beat 'em up and just give it its due a few minutes, and we'll add to the list, and then we'll compile a short list of 10 or so, and then we'll determine the 4 pillars, the 4 best. Who wants to start with a pick?
I'll go first because mine's not going to make it, but it's the only reason I suggested this episode is so I could gush about this particular arcade game. Many moons ago, back when I was a young lad, there was a pizza joint down the street from me called Round Table Pizza that most West Coasters may know, or at least people that are close to the West Coast may know about. And on many a birthday, I would spend some time there. And on many a birthday, they would have Alien versus Predator, the arcade game, which I believe, is it a Capcom game? I think it might not be. It might be. It is a Capcom. Right?
Wait,
Capcom is going to. It may not be. Let's check our facts. I mean, it looks fairly Capcomish, but I don't believe it is actually Capcom itself. It just looks and resembles that of one of the many Capcom beat 'em ups that we will be discussing.
It is Capcom.
Here in the,
it is. I was going to say, I think on the Mr. Hotego gave us this one out of his DPS set. So,
yeah,
I freaking love this game. This game is absolutely one that helped to define a lot of the beat 'em ups, in my personal opinion. Being able to play as the aliens or being able to play as the predators and just going through massive hordes of aliens and doing the whole fight and beat 'em up genre deal. You got the super quick, samurai girl, and then the beefy mechanical armed marine guy, and then of course the two different variants of the predators that you could play as. This game was sick. I always was a big Predator and Aliens fan growing up, and to be able to put me into the driver's seat of one of these two and have a side-scrolling beat 'em up just answered all the questions. And the game was good. It was fun. Of course, it was a quarter muncher, like most beat 'em up were at the time. But damn, was it not a good time. We had a lot of fun playing this one, and I sank many a quarter into this game. But this is easily one of my top favorites, I believe, of 1994 for the arcade beat 'em ups here. So I would highly suggest that this one gets at least an honorable mention, if not a nice home in one of our 4 pillars.
So funny enough, a number of these that I'm going to talk about, because my arcades had, I think, what would be considered the standard core, which we'll get to on the list. But I never saw this game in the arcade.
Okay.
There are others from the CPS set that I never saw in the arcade either, but I have found them via the Mister later, and this game is epically good. I mean, it really should be called Aliens and Humans versus Predator, or sorry, Predators and Humans versus Aliens, because it basically it's always the aliens that you're fighting. So
right.
But no, this and I'll mention one in a minute that I picked up thanks to the Mister are both absolutely epically good coin up beat 'em ups.
I feel like a lot of this particular arcade cabinet was kind of hidden amongst a lot of the Final Fights and the Simpsons and the other stuff that we will talk about in the very near future. And it probably won't get as much love as I think it requires or deserves, because it is such a great game, in my personal opinion. But again, I think it gets knocked down by its lack of availability, probably is the best way to put it. Because it was found in a lot of like hole in the wall places where you're like, oh my God, I went to Izzy's Pizza. Holy shit, we go there once a month. Oh, look, it's stuck behind all these other arcades. We're going to play the hell out of it. It's not in your Dave and Buster's and your whatever else out there. I could name all the ones that I grew up with, but they're not chain franchises.
Right.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying.
So I think Capcom at this period, like they had a string of years, like the 90s was Capcom's golden age, right?
Oh,
they had a brand new game or two every single year. So when
CPS
we had
1,
Aliens
2,
vs.
and
Predator,
3, man.
Yeah, right. And 1 and 2 are like practically back to back. And I think you had Punisher, you had this, and then you had Calyx and Dinosaurs that were on the same hardware. So you're guaranteed to have one of the 3 in your arcade. But then you quickly had Street Fighter 2 come around the same time or a couple years later, and that kind of swept the spots that would have gone to these kind of games, because fighting games kind of bumped away the beat-up genre, I think. And that's why maybe it was a bit more rare. I did see this in arcades, but it was always one machine, and you're right, it was always in the back, which is a shame, because this game it plays really solid. All of Capcom's beat 'em ups play very solid, very well. They control it really well. The music is decent. But I like the sprite work in this, right? The sprites look awesome.
The sprites are what really, I think, stands out in this game. I mean, the differentiation on all the different, I mean, you could have the same drone-looking aliens coming at you, but they change up the sprites, and it's not just a color palette swap. It's an actual design redo on a lot of things. And some of the things you fight are pretty scary looking, to be frankly honest with you. You know, they look great. So I like the big sprites. I like the feel. And I like the sound and everything. This game just really, even hearing the music and stuff, just really gets me pumped up to play any kind of beat 'em up.
For me, I mean, to Jake's point, absolutely. I feel like Street Fighter 2 in particular, and then obviously Mortal Kombat as well, and then the other fighting games, head-to-head fighting games took all the spots, which meant that there was limited room. And I always saw, we'll get to these, of course, but I always saw Simpsons or X-Men, or, those were kind of the standards that you always saw. Or TMNT, right?
Right. They're still they almost are kind of the standards. I mean, we've probably just announced at least 3 of our 4 fucking pillars that we're going to talk about here. But, we'll deep dive all those guys.
Oh, did somebody notice that Circus Charlie sucks?
Yeah. Someone's smirking.
All right. Son of a bitch.
Wow.
All right. Okay, so we have AVP on our short list. I think that's a great one. I think that's a good one to call out for sure. I also liked the 90s. We had, of course, had the Predator movie, and I think we had the second one, I think, around this time.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a whole lot of lore that we do today for the Predator franchise or the Aliens franchise. A lot of this was in comics and novels and whatnot later on. But to play a game which has such detailed sprites, all these different cool bosses, and then have different style of predators when we're probably only used to the one or two from the movies, I think that's pretty rad. So
yeah,
I think that's a great pick. All right, so AVP's on the short list. Got it there.
And it's funny because it's just the two predators. It's like it's the young hunter and the old hunter. Like that's the delineation between the two. Is you got the one that's experienced and then the one that's a little bit faster. But there's not. They just look a little like their color palettes are a little bit different, and they've got a little bit of different weaponry. But you know, it's your pick of the litter on either one of those two you want to play. At least the humans have like obviously different traits that you could work with. So.
Yeah. Well, they have guns, right? Which the other one, the predators don't, which is neat.
Yeah.
Well, they got the shoulder cannons. They use those things. So
yeah. All right, Sinistar, how about you? What's another game we can add to our list?
Well, I'm also going to go off the beaten path, and this is a game that I actually found not because of the Mister, but because of an arcade that's one of those that you buy in to go into the arcade, and then each arcade game is, I don't know, a nickel or something like that, right? So it was a game I discovered later, but Dungeons and Dragons, Shadows of Mystara, yeah. And I think this one's I personally I love this one because I'm a D&D fanatic, but at the same time it actually made it so that the classes felt like they were classes. It wasn't just, hey, it's a reskinned so and so that is just beating people up again. It's no, they have different abilities or magic or this, that, the other. So it's a little bit, I guess, Golden Axe, but it's also a little bit like well, obviously D&D, but it's also a little bit kind of Cadillacs and dinosaurs. It's like it kind of goes over a lot of those different genres, but no, I love and if you don't have Shadow of Mystara available to play, you could always throw up Tower of Doom as well. So
I think I found Mystara. I thought I was looking for those. It's probably just deeper on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, I found it here. So the difference between the two, I'm glad you picked this one because this is one of my favorite arcade games growing up. I occasionally at this age I played D&D a couple times, but I never had a chance to really get into it. But I was familiar enough with the character classes and the races, so when you spin up this game or in the arcades, it was fun to play. I remember playing Tower of Doom on emulator quite a bit back in the day, and I remember getting all the way to this red dragon boss, which I think was the last boss. And it didn't matter how many, it was on MAME, so I don't know how many quarters I threw at it, but I could not beat that boss. It was impossible. But the sequel game feels like a much better game, much more smoother gameplay. There's more items and spells. I want to say there's more character classes to pick from. So it's just an all around great game. The music is really solid, and I'm a big fan of beat 'em ups where you don't get stun locked. Right?
Yeah.
When
you're playing some beat 'em up games like Golden Axe or something, for example, sometimes
they hit you once and you're like,
and you're stuck.
Yeah.
I hate that. In this, I don't have that issue in this game. There's always some way you can maneuver on the enemies. You can drop a spell if you need to, or you can do your jump attack. It's pretty responsive. Controls are really sweet in this game, and I think it's a really great one. Plus, there's like multiple paths, right?
Yeah.
All these different bosses. It's a wild game.
Yep. Yeah, so
this is one I didn't play until I had my retro arch. So this like Sinistar was with the last one. Until I actually found a retro arch that played this, I never saw this in the arcades, and I'm super sad because this game is incredibly fun to play and very unique, and it's a blast. I don't remember how many. I used a lot of quarters playing this on retro arch just to beat the final boss. It was I had to hit that select button quite a bit to keep this game going. But I love the different classes. I love the magic spells you pick up when you're running around. This is a really fun arcade game.
Yeah, I think every single game on this list is going to be a quarter sucker. Every single one. I mean, that
Yeah.
that was what arcade games were, but I feel like the coin up beat 'em ups was like to excess, right?
Right. Yeah.
Although it wasn't the quick time events of like, Dragon Lair. But
Right.
yeah.
But they're always hard. Arcade games are hard, like you're saying, right? They've always been that way.
Right.
Some are more fair than others, and I do think Dungeons and Dragons was more fair to the player's time than some of the other beat 'em ups that we're talking about today. I felt I went further on a single quarter in this game than I have in any other beat 'em up that we would talk about today.
Anyway, Hotego, who does a bunch of cores for the Mister, I think these are out of beta, which means they're public access. Both of the games that we've talked about so far, I think, are public access, and they're fantastic on the Mister.
Yeah. There's also a package release, I think, on Steam, I want to say. It was a number of years ago, and I heard that was done fairly well. This is a franchise I always wondered why we didn't get another one. Like, why is there not a third one? That is definitely popular enough.
Right. All right, how about you? What are you gonna name?
Yeah, what do you got, Jake?
So I have a few that I want to make sure I bring up. So I'm gonna start with one, and I want to bounce off you guys to see if it counts. And it's Kung Fu Master. Are you guys familiar with Kung Fu Master?
Yes.
I am not.
So
it might be out of my age group.
So it came out in, I want to say it was 86 or 85.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this one because when you look at Wikipedia considers this to be the origin of the beat 'em up genre. And I don't know if it counts or not, so I want to check with you guys. This is the one you might have played the NES version, where you're basically like a Shaolin monk entering a temple, and there's multiple levels of this temple, and it's the game where when you walk in, it's that groovy 3-loop beat, and then guys run at you, and you just punch them, and they die instantly. And if they manage to touch you, they hug you. It's the hugging simulator. Wolf would probably have a laugh at this game. So it's definitely a hugging simulator. And yeah, it's a beat 'em up because you're constantly taking down multiple enemies. There's a good variety: knife throwers, boomerang throwers. There's a mage boss, for example. The stages do scroll like beat 'em ups should, but there isn't that 3D plane of movement that we're used to seeing in other beat 'em up games. But I still think this one counts as a beat 'em up. What do you think?
I'm just gonna throw out that if this one counts, Altered Beast counts.
Which we did argue that it may not, but it's more of an Altered Beast than a actual, like a final fight or a double dragon or something like that. Like
I'm willing to give on it and say it is, but I'm also then gonna say, well, then Altered Beast belongs on this list.
Okay.
And I'm not willing to give on it. So you got a 50-50 ruling on this one, and whatever your decision is, I guess will be the decision that turns the tides on it.
No, I'm asking. I'm only saying it as a beat 'em up because Wiki says so.
Okay.
I did go against the Wiki, but yeah, my thing I'm hung up on is the 3D plane of movement. It's not there, right? It's just that 2D plane, and there's no combos. You have 2 attacks, which is great, but enemies die in like one hit, right? It's you can see how this leads to the beat 'em up genre, but I don't know if it counts on its own. And I don't want to put Altered Beast on this list, so I'm willing to keep it off if that's the case, because I think there has to be a line somewhere on the genre.
Yeah.
So if this is it, then that makes sense.
I can't let this one in. I can't. It doesn't have your standard, like you said, the 3D plane of movement, more than one player on the screen, up to 2 to 4, at the same time, doing the same thing, fighting multiple bosses. Character select screen. This is just more like Altered Beast. It's more side-scrolling hack and slash, I guess you could call it, even though there's not a lot of slashing or hacking.
Okay. Oh, it works. So it's not on the list.
Okay.
So
what else
you got?
What else you got?
You want me to do another one?
Yes.
I'll do one more. I think is really important to talk about. If Kung Fu Master cannot be called the first beat 'em up, then it's got to be Renegade. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Renegade.
Yeah, okay, I can go with Renegade.
Let me pull up Renegade real quick. So Renegade, people probably know the follow-up game, which is Double Dragon. It was the same creator. And it's actually got very similar controls, although maybe it's not as polished or refined as Double Dragon, which I guess is saying something for those who played Double Dragon. But Renegade was probably the first beat 'em up game, and I'm gonna pull up there it is. Sorry. This one's interesting for a few reasons. One, so it has 3 buttons. You have a jump, but then the attacks are split into attacking left button and attack right button. And that's the same control scheme that Double Dragon uses. And I feel like a lot of people don't remember that because they're probably more used to playing the Master System version of Double Dragon or the NES version where we don't have that.
Right.
But when we look at Renegade, it has that same attack style, left attack, right attack, and that was very confusing to me. What I find really neat, though, is that in Japan, this was a Kunio-ko game. For those who don't know that name, that's the series that basically became River City Ransom in the States. This is the very first one. In Japan, it looks close to that style. You can see the bones of it. But when they brought it over to the U.S., they didn't think that theme would fly, so they rethemed it after The Warriors, which is a great film for those who haven't seen it.
Sure. Yeah.
But so if you look at comparisons,
too, isn't it? The Warriors
much later, there's a PS2 game, I want to say, which I also was fantastic. So they took the influence of the Warriors with the graffiti and the dark leather and jackets and all kinds of stuff. They re-raced a couple of the characters to fit the American audience. But if you play the Japanese version, it's much more colorful, and it's definitely Kuniko characters, although much taller. So I think that's neat that this is the first one of that franchise. That's a huge franchise in Japan, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But
and I would definitely argue that this definitely meets the beat 'em up standard. And if this is an earlier version, like you said, the last one, Kung Fu Faster, was what, 86 too? So this is 86 as well. This would probably be the grandfather of all beat 'em ups.
Yeah, and you have the 3D plane of movement. You have multiple different enemies coming at you. You have combos in this one, much like you see in beat 'em up games. There's hugging, because that's a standard. Weapons, all that kind of great stuff. The only thing that's different about this game, sorry, is it's hard as hell. And it's unfairly hard. Maybe it's before they kind of realized what the degree of difficulty should be for these kind of games.
Right.
But you enter your quarter, you have 1 life and a time limit, and if you die, that's it. You start over. It's pretty punishing.
He dies.
Yeah, he dies. So it's an interesting piece of history. The sprites, I think, look great even today, but it's hard as fuck. Hard as fuck.
Yeah.
So
no, this is clean.
I go with this one. This is this, and we're going to talk about its sequel as well. At least its American sequel for sure.
Yeah.
So
well,
right,
probably
so
a few
add...
of its carbon copy clones that we'll see later on.
Yeah.
Renegade. I can't spell.
Renegade.
Don't judge me on misspelling. All right, Chard, you're up next. Let's get another pick in the list.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take one that we're all probably dying to talk about. Sinistar mentioned it in one of our many discussions here a few minutes ago. This was another one that was at another actual Izzy's Pizza that I frequented many times in my childhood, throwing quarter after quarter into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game.
Yep.
The original. This game has more money. I probably put all the kids through college that helped make this game from all of the money that I threw into this game. I absolutely adore this beat 'em up. This is one of my all-time favorite beat 'em ups. Right next to Alien versus Predator. You can't go wrong with this. This game was one of the first aspects of me playing a beat 'em up and playing with my 4 friends, because you can actually control 4 players at one time. And it's one of my fondest memories in any arcade situation is playing Ninja Turtles. The sprite work in this game is spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
It's freaking Ninja Turtles. You can't go wrong with them. It's just a lot of fun playing Donatello all the time and just fighting the Foot Clan and all the different hazards that are around you, falling into manhole covers or knocking off the hydrant plates and helping yourself out, fighting over the pizza. Who's going to get the pizza? Oh, fuck, I stepped on the pizza. It's my fault. I took it, It's just fun. It's fun playing it, and I think it spawned a lot of other great beat 'em ups, including, Ninja Turtles in Time and so on and so forth. They originally got the Manhattan Project for the Nintendo off of this. There's just a lot of really good things that came out of Ninja Turtles, and I have to put this. This has to be one of the 4 pillars,
including a very modern sequel, Shredder's Revenge, which is fantastic.
That all 4 of us played together.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yep.
Yeah. This is one of those games when I got my Mister, when I originally got my Mister, this wasn't available at the time, and this is one of the ones I had on my list of games I would love to have come to the Mister at some point, and eventually it did, and I couldn't be happier to play it on an arcade machine like this. You're right, Chart. This is the graphics are beautiful. The music, the opening of the arcade machine, the intro music from the cartoon show is there. It looks so great. The personality and charm is so good. I love the home console ports of this, but the arcade is so much better.
Well,
I always wanted the home console ports to be even remotely close to this.
Yeah.
And even when they did Hyperstone Heist for the Genesis and they did, the Super Nintendo stuff, it still was just something fell short on this particular. And I think it's the animation. It just didn't have that same smooth feeling that you get out of playing this.
Well, there also is the aspect, and this will be a theme that will come up again and again, but there's also the aspect of 4 people standing at an arcade machine, I've got to put in my quarter. I got to continue. I got to put in my quarter, and like
help keep your friends in by throwing your quarter in so that they can keep going while they're looking for theirs. So, you can keep on playing.
Yeah.
This is a great one.
Those epically wide arcades that had the 4-player, posts and
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the one that had special moves if you did a jump and attack at the same time and it would use up some of your life?
I think so.
This is the one. Yeah.
I
And that's the theme,
one.
I think, with other Konami games.
Yep. This is definitely one of those. Yep.
Yeah. And Konami is definitely one of the big players when it comes to beat 'em ups. And this is a great one. I felt much like somewhat like D&D. If I put a quarter in TMNT, I didn't feel like I was wasting money. I'd at least get 5 minutes of gameplay, if not more, on this game, right? It was possible to actually get deep on 1 quarter. It was pretty generous with the lives, pretty generous with the 1-ups. Still a hard game. They all are. But I felt this is more fair than the other ones. I love this game.
This was the game that made every final boss fight in a level, I wanted them to flash every single time.
Yep.
Because that way I know they're getting beat up, When you start seeing bosses flash,
the faster.
The faster the flashing. That was one of those things where I was like, you get hyped as soon as they start flashing. You're like, we're getting them. So this is a cool feeling. I got a lot of nostalgia from that one.
All right, good pick. Sinistar, let's have another one.
All right, I'm going with one that cannot be skipped. It's got to be on this list. I don't know if it'll make the 4 pillars, but it's got to be on this list. Golden Axe.
Fuck yeah. Absolutely does. I would even argue it'd be on one of the 4 pillars.
Yeah. I mean, A, you got to pick your class. B, every single class had magic ability. C, the magic ability was based on how many potions you'd collected.
Yes.
You got to ride, mounts. I mean, I just for some reason it is just ingrained in my head, that initial scene where the guy is beating the person over the head with the haft of the axe. It's just, it's all there. So, and there was nothing like when one of the players that's playing the game hits their magic button and everything pauses and it just starts flashing and
Yeah, I was playing this before the episode we went live, and I made it to the second stage. In the opening of second stage, or second area, a bunch of the villager people come running and screaming away from the boss, and that's really cinematic for what it did for a game in the arcades. It felt really good. I feel like a lot of this influenced Dungeons and Dragons for Capcom when they made their beat 'em up years later.
Oh, sure.
It feels like a similar style in the people running, the villagers, you're saving people. It's really interesting. The stages are really unique. The one stage you're on the back of a turtle in a village, for example. I love those freaking mounts, right? And they're different, right? You have like the bird lizard thing with the tail attack. With the tail, you have one that breathes fire, which
fire
is
breather.
And then one that shoots a fucking fireball. But the highlight of this one is between the levels, the imps show up. One gives you meat, one gives you potions, and you
kick the
beat
shit
them over
out
the
of
head.
them. It's just a beat the imp fest.
Yeah.
And it just came up on the screen. I know it's going to be out of sync, but the select character screen with the skeleton with its hands, it's burned into the brain,
Yep. I mean, the Death Adder is by far one of the greatest end bosses on beat 'em ups throughout the world. I absolutely love this game, and when they ported it over to like the Sega Genesis, my friend and I would play the ever loving shit out of this and Golden Axe 2. This was one of my favorite Sega beat 'em up ports that came over from the arcade. So I've played this game quite a bit growing up.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a number of arcade titles Sega made that were just great on the Genesis. If you were an early adopter of the Genesis, you had this, you had Altered Beast, you had Forgotten Worlds, and they all felt close enough to the arcades where it's like bragging rights. Like, this is why you got a Genesis for these titles. Yeah, Golden Axe is a really fun one. I agree with you. I like the magic. I especially like it if you hang on and don't use up your things to get to level 8. Like, I know the lady, the Valkyrie, when she's at level 8, a giant dragon head comes on the screen and just roast everybody. That's cool as hell. I don't know who you're asking. That's awesome.
The magic was cinematic. It was awesome. You know,
that's why you'd level up the magic just so you can see how cool the attack was. And that's probably the reason I hoard all my elixirs and stuff and all my other games that I play, because I'm just like, I can't use my magic yet. We can't use it yet.
Yeah, and I got to get to magic level whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is great with the giants with their huge stone hammer mallets.
Yep.
This game was intense and insane. I love this game. It's a great pick.
Okay. I will say the one issue I have with this one is that you do get stun locked in this one, and I never quite figured a way around that one. That one feels kind of frustrating.
Ninja Turtles you did too, so
yeah. Well, but Ninja Turtles you could wiggle the joystick to get out of it. I don't think there was escaping in this one.
Yes, sir.
I don't know.
'Tis fair.
All right. My pick.
All right. What say you?
All right. I got another one that I think we have to call out for historical reasons, and that is Die Hard Arcade, or in Japan it was known as Dynamite Deca.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. What does this grow in sci for?
No, this was a huge one. I love this game. I played this game quite a bit. This felt like the end of arcade beat 'em ups to me.
Yes.
As I aged, like, this was the last good arcade beat 'em up that I played back when. If you guys know what QZR is, have you guys heard of what the QZR place is? It's a laser tag place. It was a really popular laser tag place in Sacramento where I grew up. And they had all-nighters. So you would come in at like 6 p.m. and literally stay there until 6 a.m. in the morning. And you would do QZR. So you would laser tag, and then in between each laser tag, you would go into the arcade and you'd play all these. And one of these games was there, and my friend and I played the hell out of this one. This one and Time Crisis, which is not a beat 'em up, so it doesn't happen. But we played a lot of arcade games in that particular instance. Then they call your number, you get in line, you go play some laser tag, and then you come back. A lot of cool times with Die Hard. So this is one that I fondly remember towards the end of my arcade career.
So I don't remember this one in the arcade, and I'm looking at it, and it's definitely a beat 'em up. It's definitely a coin up beat 'em up, but it's also like Virtua Fighter.
Exactly. Right.
Well, it's the 3D polygons that are shaded, and it was the first 3D shaded polygon beat 'em up. It might even be the only one in arcades, but it was definitely unique, and I think it's a step ahead. But you're not wrong when you think of this. Yeah, I also think of this as the end of the genre. After this, it was home consoles, and I never saw beat 'em up in the arcades since. Yeah, at least not until recently.
Did this one make it to like Sega Saturn or anything like that, or Dreamcast or something like that?
Dreamcast for sure. I don't know about the Saturn. It's interesting because like this is one of those games where I feel the license probably hurts it when it comes to home ports. There is a sequel to it on home consoles, Dynamite Deca 2, which if anybody is into emulation, you got to play that one because instead of the Die Hard theme, they kind of go all in on supernatural stuff like Chinese ghosts with the paper on the front of the face and zombies. It's bizarre. But this one I wanted to highlight because the weapons, when you get the weapons in this game, are epic, right? You pick up a giant rocket launcher out of nowhere inside a building.
The 4-barrel rocket launcher,
Yeah, and you fire it and the screen shakes, the whole thing blows up. That's funny as hell. I like their story, even if the story is stupid. But they give the villain behind a desk talking on the phone, asking about the bomb, and then the mayor's daughter or something is hiding inside of the cabinet, and it pans to her. The story is ultra cheesy. The effects are cheesy, but it's a fun one to play. Do you guys remember the QuickTime events in this one?
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, where where you're running through and you can either avoid a fight with somebody if you do the quick time at the right time. You'll sucker punch somebody running through an alleyway or a hallway, and then you would progress to the next thing. Or if you messed it up, then you would have to, fight whoever. I love the Nakatomi Plaza logo on the fucking floor there.
I love that this guy that I'm watching just took a rocket launcher directly in the face and lost like 5% of his health.
Yep. Well, it's because of the helmet he's wearing. The helmet protects him from RPGs.
Where can I buy one?
Well, I mean, it's not like beat 'em ups are known for their realism, right? When we're talking about, Ninja Turtles are swinging swords around and enemies.
It's a low impact. It's a low impact.
He even did a little ass shake there. I don't know if you saw that. There was a little ass shake there.
That game's got some really good animation, and it was a lot of fun playing that one. I could throw Die Hard on this list. That's a great pick.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks legit to me.
Because to me, it's the end. Like Renegade would be considered the beginning. This is kind of the end of the era of the beat 'em ups.
Yeah. All right. Looping back around, Jared. Let's hear another one.
I'm surprised nobody brought this one up yet, but I'm going to steal it from all of y'all. Everybody's played this game on this dais. I'm sure of it. You guys have gotten your friends together and have all selected whether you're going to play any one of Matt Groening's fantastically animated comedic characters. Arguing if you're going to play as Bart or you're going to play as Marge with her vacuum cleaner, or you're just going to fist to fist with Homer and beat the shit out of things as you chase Smithers. Is it Smithers? It's animated like Smithers, but it's more like the classic Smithers. You're right. I'm picking the Simpsons arcade game, which, by the way, name drop, Shrum and I, when I went and visited him, he and I played this game, and he and I and his girlfriend beat the hell out of it and won it that night.
Yep.
So that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Love this game. Another one you get together and play in parties. You get your friends together, put your coins up on the table, and you tell everybody to go find something else to do because we are hoarding this game until we beat it. And sure shit, couple, $50,000-$60,000 later, you're fighting Smithers dropping bombs on your head, and it is as cheap as it could possibly be. You're just feeding the goddamn thing quarters throughout the entire end boss fight. One of the hardest boss fights out there, but also some really cool mini games where you can blow up the balloons and, you're constantly chasing Maggie and the whole 9 yards. This game, hilarity ensues. I love this game. Big fan of the Simpson beat 'em up arcade game.
Yeah. Oh, this game, once again, one of those where you all hoard around the 4-player posts. And you're dumping quarters. Everybody's, one person's continuing while the other 3 are fighting. It's just, and the smooth animations, good controls. It plays like a Simpsons game. It's got that silliness factor to it. Yeah, it's a great game for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you chose this one, Chard, because it would have been one I'd take. This is one of the few beat 'em ups I've beaten all the way through on 1 credit. I was 1 credit cleared this game. It took me a while to figure it out. I did it because I was speed running it for a charity stream years and years ago. I found this one really neat though, because if you play it on a MAME today, for those who have kind of dived into MAME, you'll notice that there's different versions of games, like different versions of the ROMs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 or 4 different versions of The Simpsons. And some of the earlier versions have different items in the game. Some of the earlier versions of it have nuclear bombs, which I guess they found inappropriate and they took out. So I found that was interesting. I love the sprites in this one as well. The animation is top notch. Like when we say that, TMNT had personality in the sprite work, this is just the same thing. It feels like you're playing the cartoon. And when you look at the home console games you're playing at the time, nothing compared graphic wise to me anyway than playing a cartoon like The Simpsons on it in the arcade. Some of the color choices on like Bart's color choice is weird. I wasn't a fan of how character was tied to the spot on the joystick on the machine you're playing on. So when you're playing home console, you're usually Marge because she was always on the left. But when you're in the arcade and you got to pick, it was kind of neat. When you're playing multiplayer, there's team up attacks. Like Bart and Lisa would do a somersault together, which is really rad.
Yep.
Playing as Homer is freaking hilarious. It just, what a great one. Very unique bosses, very unique stages. There's one where you're basically asleep, so you're in the afterlife. And in the afterlife, you're fighting like musical instruments and letters and deviled Barts. This game has so much charm. The music is great. I'm with you on the mini games are really awesome. Yeah, what a great package of a game. I'm glad you chose this one.
Yeah.
I think for sure it's shortlisted.
I'd almost go on. I'm going out there. I'm going on the limb to say that this is probably the best Simpsons video game that was ever created.
I liked Hit and Run.
Hit and Run's good, but I'm going to argue that this is better than Hit and Run. And you can come at me, come to the Discord at me, tell me how wrong I am. But I truly believe that this is the finest Simpsons game that was ever made.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that one. I like Hit and Run as well. But to be fair, I mean, low bar is low with Simpsons games, right? There's a lot of bad ones on the home console. But when it comes to the arcade, this is pretty sweet, though. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I would rather play it. When I bought Bart versus the Space Mutants, I was under the impression it was going to be like the arcade game.
Yeah.
How wrong was I, gentlemen? How wrong was I?
So bad. So bad. Okay, Sinistar, let's hear another one.
Well, okay. Like Chard said, I got to take this one. I'm surprised it hasn't been picked yet, but I'm going to pick it. And that's going to be Mr. Mike Hagar and Final Fight.
Let's go. Let's
From
go.
the thumbnail.
First game I ever played on Super Nintendo was Final Fight.
All right.
I
mean, I don't know
the game until way later in my life.
I don't know that this is, daddy of, which probably goes to Renegade / Double Dragon, but I played this more than I played Double Dragon for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I mean, it has the simplest story ever, fridging a girlfriend. You have to go get her. But I don't know. There's something to like a Mayor Mike Hagar who's who's a muscle bound like wrestler that does spinning attacks with his arms wide out, right? This game honestly, I don't know. It seemed like it was in every arcade as well that I went to. So
when you're teaming up with your daughter's boyfriend to go rescue her, it's got to be a good time, right?
Right.
Well, this is the one that had who was the character? So it was
Guy
Mayor Hagar. Show her some respect. He's mayor of Metro City.
Guy.
Yeah, and Guy.
Guy.
And then
please.
Or Guy.
He's French Quebecer. I assume it's Guy. The only guy I know is Guy Prime from Press B. Everybody else I know is Guy.
Guy Prime.
What do I know? Guy Prime. Yeah.
And then honestly, third character that I can't remember.
Yeah. And Duder.
Cody. Cody's the boyfriend.
Cody. That's right. Cody's boyfriend. Yeah.
But I always loved
Okay, sorry. Really quick. I love that it has an indicator for when an enemy has been defeated. Like it actually puts an X on their little like health bar.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. I like how every enemy has a name too, right? Even if some of them are interesting. So I love that. Tons of enemies on this screen at once. It's definitely hectic.
Weapons.
It's definitely the opening. It's Capcom's. I think this came before Punisher and Alien vs Predator and whatnot. And that would make sense. But this kind of sets the stage of what they would do later, which is you got to respect that one. I was always as a kid, more of a Streets of Rage person. But I mean, that was never in arcades, right? As far as I know, Final Fight was definitely in the arcades first. And I know when they brought it to home ports, there were some issues with like the sprites being so large, they could only have 2 characters. I think there was like a Blockbuster exclusive version with Guy replacing Cody to get around that.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting one. I also really like how this is the same world as Street Fighter. Metro City exists in the Street Fighter universe. So when we have Street Fighter 6 coming out last year, that actually takes place in Metro City, which is Mayor Mike Hagar. I think he's no longer mayor, but he's still in that world. And Cody and Guy both are characters that show up in later Street Fighter games. Cody was in Street Fighter 3. Guy, I think, is in the story mode for a few games. And Mike Hagar also had was in the Power Wrestling? There's a wrestling fighting game that he was in as well. So I like how Capcom has this like universe with multiple games in it, but this beat 'em up as being part of it is kind of cool. I like this one a lot.
I mean, you look at the sprite work in this one, and you can definitely see that there's some marriage between Streets of Rage and this. I was also a huge Streets of Rage kid growing up because Jake and I are both the Sega people of the cast, and I played the heck out of them. But then when I went back and I played since you play the first, right? You play Streets of Rage first because you didn't have access to Final Fight on your home console, and then you go play the arcade game of Final Fight, and you're like, hey, some of these Streets of Rage bad guys look just like bad guys from Final Fight, but you think that Final Fight stole it from them, not realizing that Final Fight was first. So you're barking up the wrong tree a little bit on some of these some of these sprites artwork because you're like, I'm gonna rage against the streets here with these sprites. The streets. That's why we're raging, because they totally stole sprites from Final Fight to make Streets of Rage.
Right.
I have to point out, we actually did an episode on a game it's a fan game called Final Fight LNS Ultimate, I think is what it was called. But it's a fan game that's basically a recreation of Final Fight, but with dozens and dozens of characters, like Chun-Li and everybody. Everybody's here. It's a really good time. The story is a bit risque in parts, because, again, it's a fan game, so, that's going to happen. But the gameplay is spot on to Final Fight. Yeah, it's definitely fan fiction, but there's a ton of characters. So if you're into Final Fight and you want something new to try, Final Fight LNS Ultimate, you can find copies of it. I think it's there's an English version now. If I remember right, I think it was Brazilian originally, but there's definitely an English translation of it, and I played it. We did an audio episode of this with I think it was Dave actually from Tadpog way back when. So definitely one to check out.
Yeah, that was before Sinistar in my time. If you want to talk about really good beat 'em ups that you can play nowadays, I would go and talk. We need to do an episode on Streets of Rage 4, because that game is freaking epic. So
yeah, that was a pretty awesome
go check
one.
that shit out on Steam.
Yeah.
So
whose turn is it? Is it mine or Sinistar's? Me?
I think it's you.
All right. Then I'm gonna go with X-Men, another Konami fighting up, another beat 'em up from Konami. How good is this one? This is a great one.
Amazingly epic.
Yeah,
well,
this is
and how good is it that everybody fights over Cyclops?
I did not.
Nightcrawler was in this one. I think I liked using Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler is in this one. I've always been a big Gambit fan, but Gambit wasn't in this because this was pre-Gambit's existence into the gaming systems. So Dazzler was the closest thing I could get to Gambit, and so I always went with Dazzler.
I always went for that beam weapon, man. That beam weapon.
Exploding kinetics? Come on, man. No one could stop the blob. This one's a great game. This game is awesome. Oh, the voice
Colossus.
Yeah. Wolverine had the gigantic wings coming off his head.
He did. Yeah. And he was also very, very, very hairy.
Yeah.
He's very Canadian in this one. Very accurate portrayal. This was the one that's was based on the canceled Fox cartoon. For those who don't know that one, go look it up on YouTube. There was a pilot for an X-Men cartoon before the one we all know and love in X-Men 97. There was one before that was canceled, and the theme from that is pretty awesome. But that's what the sprites here, or the characters here, they look like that one. And it's very interesting. So you have the full face covering, the full face mask for Cyclops, for example. Storm is has that unique costume design you don't see in the later cartoon. But yeah, as somebody who watched the cartoon as a kid, this is the next best thing. And yeah, different bosses every stage. The environments are really awesome. I love that you get to use their mutant powers. Only twice though, I think it was, right? It's limited, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a rad one. This one is also, if I ever win the lottery and I can afford to get one and I can make room for it, I want that huge honking, I think it was 2 or 3 monitor arcade cabinet. It was massive.
Yeah, it was 3 monitors.
It was
3 monitors.
Was it 6 players? I think, or it might have been. Maybe it was only 4, but it was a massive.
It was only
machine.
4. I think it was only 4.
But it was still 3 monitors.
Yeah, but it's still enormous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This game is one of the bigger arcade games that you can play and see right down to the slightest detail on the screen with how big those monitors were. This got a lot of play. We played the hell out of this game because at the time we were, of course, watching the cartoon and I was collecting the comic cards and the books and stuff. It's very accurate to the 1980s, 1970s X-Men characters. So all the costumes are extremely accurate to what they were doing. I love how Storm has a staff. She doesn't have a staff anymore, but she has a staff in this particular model.
That's because the Morlocks,
Wolverine.
Right?
Yeah. Wolverine has wings on everything.
Oh yeah.
He's just carrying the wings. This game was we just played the hell out of it. I love fighting the Sentinels. I loved the boss fights and fighting all the different. God, I can't remember Magneto's. I think it's the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants was the team that he was playing against with Pyro and Blob and Toad and all those guys. There was some really cool boss fights, really excellent sprites in this. Very cool. And I remember when I first saw Cyclops without the full cowl, and he had his hair out on the original animated series. And I was like, oh, he looks way cooler than he does. He doesn't look like he's wearing a scuba suit. So. Cyclops in his wetsuit.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, no, great pick. This is an excellent game.
Agreed.
Excellent game. This is going to be hard to make 4 pillars out of this.
Yeah. How many more do you think we got
left?
Short list? Is there anything else? Do you have another pick, Sinstar, or do you think we've got enough?
4.
Do we want to add Double Dragon?
We talked about it. We got to throw at least Double Dragon on.
Okay.
There's at least
I think
one or two more.
Cadillacs and Dinosaurs belongs on there.
I'd argue that Captain Commando needs to be on there as well.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
We can do kind of a lightning round here. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is, I don't think it's the greatest beat 'em up, but I think it's the greatest like name for a beat 'em up and like a mismatch of like, what the fuck is this?
It was a TV show, wasn't it? Wasn't it an animated show at some time?
Wasn't it a comic as well? It was a force. It had different media,
I think it was a comic before it was a show. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Knights of the Round. That's another one that we could put lightning round on there. We don't have to show any clips to talk about that one in depth, but Knights of the Round is a great
beat 'em up. About that one. Okay.
Yep. And Captain Commando, I think, definitely needs to be in there. Yeah. Captain Commando is the one with the extremely weird team of superheroes. One Captain Commando obviously looks like a Wish.com Captain America, but he shoots flames out of his arms. And then you've got Mac the Knife, which is some slender pink dude with a bandana that spins around with his knives. You've got the baby that controls the giant mech body, and then the ninja, the shinobi that ran around with them. So very unique group of characters, and I think that's kind of why I was picking this one. Played this one a lot at the skating rink growing up. But it's got some really weird, like it's a weird team, and I'm sure it's a comic or TV or something, but I don't know anything outside of it just being your regular Capcom game of very unique individuals teaming up to fight evil and crime everywhere they go. So
weird. Okay.
But yeah, I played this. I know Captain Commando characters show up in quite a few of the Capcom beat 'em ups. It's a good run. So I don't think it's one of the 4 pillars, but definitely think it needs to be at least brought to some attention so people go, I should go and find that and play it on my MAME and check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Double Dragon is one you're right we should mention too, because like we said earlier, we had Renegade, and the creator Renegade, his next game was Double Dragon. So he took a lot of the same ideas from that to Double Dragon, including that stupid left and right attack. And I hate it, but that led to some really great, fantastic home ports of Double Dragon. I mean, that's a franchise that's on every single console, probably has a version of Double Dragon, but it all comes back to that arcade game, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Music is my favorite part of Double Dragon. The opening intro,
yeah,
fantastic, right?
I think this is a good place to call out. We've probably forgotten your favorite beat 'em up.
Yep.
Come to our Discord and talk to us about it. You can find all the links at pressbtocancel.com.
Tell us how wrong we are.
Or pressb.org. And while you're at it, like and subscribe. It's free.
All right.
Okay.
All right. We got a list. So now we need to determine maybe not the best 4, but the 4 that define the genre. So if somebody were to come from Mars and have never played video games, never played beat 'em ups, and we got to tell them the 4 games, counting's hard, the 4 games that they need to play to appreciate and enjoy the beat 'em up genre. We got to pick that 4. This is a good list of games, though.
Well,
things are going to get missed, and that's going to make me sad.
I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna say, even though Renegade came first, I think Double Dragon has to be a pillar.
Oh, but Renegade's the first one.
Yeah, but
understand.
how many people have like played Renegade versus how many people have played Double Dragon? Like, I think you would
Yes.
find more people to be like, yeah, Double Dragon's one of the greatest beat 'em ups of all time, and then you go, but Renegade kind of made it. They're like, who? What? You mean the original
Yeah.
Double Dragon? I've never played it. I would argue that Double Dragon carries more weight than Renegade, no matter where it is in its timeline.
When I
It's
think
sad,
of a
but it's
coin
true.
up, beat 'em up, honestly, Double Dragon is at least in the first two I think of every time.
Yeah, this hurts. But you guys aren't wrong
gonna
though.
hurt.
Like you're right. Like
gonna
honestly, I never played Renegade in arcades as a kid. I'd never heard of this game. I did not know the difference between the Japanese and the American version until just recently. And I'm with you guys. When I think of this gameplay, Double Dragon does it better. Double Dragon is certainly not the best beat 'em up in arcades, but it's definitely one of the ones that I think defined a whole lot of genre and influence in later games.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going for. I don't know. I would argue that it's more well known, so it's better.
Yeah, this isn't a bracket,
right?
No. All right. So Double Dragon, we think, is probably one of the four pillars.
Yeah.
I think we got to put D&D there as well for how unique that was. It's a beat 'em up with stellar controls, graphics, multiple pathways, items, different characters that are very, very different, right? The spell user is different than the cleric, different than the fighter, different from the dwarf. I think D&D is probably one of those pillars.
You go first, Sinister. Yeah.
No, I can go either direction on this one. I think you're right. It had enough unique content compared to most of the beat 'em up games that it really was a standout beat 'em up. And so yeah, I'm willing to put it there. Okay. I'm worried it's going to get bounced, but I'm willing to put it there.
I wouldn't say bounced. We're going to go on the Game Awards argument of if we put that in one of the four slots, is something that we think is more deserving going to get denied because that one's there. That's my only argument. Your points are perfectly valid. It's 100% unique. It's got some cool characters. The animation's great. There's things that only it does that you don't see in other places. I just like Sinister. I can go kind of either way on that one, but my concern is like we'll have D&D on there, and X-Men will miss out, or something else will mix out that you're like that should definitely be there.
Okay.
I'm all right with hanging my hat on it for now, but I want to see where we are at the end of this discussion.
I'll put it there for now. Yeah. Nothing's locked in until we say so, but we'll put it there for now.
I think, and I'm going to argue with I'm going to call them the big 4-player stand at the console games. I think we probably have to pick one from those, between Simpsons, X-Men, I mean, TMNT.
Yeah.
I mean, and to me, TMNT.
It's tough.
That's the one that wins for me.
See, for me as a kid, when I walked into the arcade, and it wasn't part of the rows because it's such a massive machine, but they had to devote an entire corner, a section of the arcade floor space to the giant X-Men machine, and the sound was booming. It called to you with its massive displays.
Oh yeah,
and that for me, I think wins. The only part I'm not great on, and it's huge, it's wide. My only issue with it though, and TMNT has this problem, is there's a lack of enemy variety in both TMNT and X-Men. There's a lot more. Well, maybe not. Maybe there isn't enemy variety in Simpsons. There really isn't.
There's not.
I think, no.
It's hard to argue that fact because I mean the Sentinels are palette swapped. The Foot Clan are palette swapped.
Yeah,
but they have different and unique abilities. Like the gray ones have samurai swords, and the yellow ones throw boomerangs, and the purple ones just go hand to hand with you. Now they might have just color swapped them, but they at least have some differentiations between them that it wasn't like, oh, I'm fighting a blue and a green that are doing the same thing. There were some changes to it. So I could argue that I have to go with Sinistar on this one. And my argument, and it's not, you're right, Jay, because I think X-Men absolutely should be on there with TMNT.
Yeah.
But as my nostalgia is getting that itch scratched, TMNT probably was one of the earlier games that I played as a kid in the beat 'em up stylings before I went to X-Men and went, oh shit, this is a game too. So it's only because of my memory that this game is getting a little bit more love. But I hate that X-Men may not make it onto this list. I hate that.
I'm going to admit X-Men was the better game, but I think for me what it's coming down to is what has had more legacy than TMNT Arcade, right? I mean,
yeah. Like, I also hate not putting The Simpsons on here because when it comes to story and cutscenes, The Simpsons was just a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also that's one I played more post afterwards.
Can we just all agree to disagree and make it a multiplayer based and just put all three on there and just be like, this pillar is for more than one person playing at the same time?
I'm going to say more than two people. It's the 3 to 4 player, right?
Yeah. Because to be fair, Alien versus Predator, I believe, is 4-player as well. So
that's true. That's true.
Having a hard time with that.
The impact of TMNT is great because we had such a blast playing Shredder's Revenge. And I think that's only because we probably all played TMNT in our youth. And to play Shredder's Revenge in a modern age is like, it was all the callbacks to this arcade game that I loved. Yeah. So, okay. So
I think Turtle needs to go on there.
I
hate it.
I mean,
I'm to go on there.
I'm with you. To me, X-Men's the better game. But I think we're taking into account like the pillars, right? It's not what's the best game, it's what's the pillar of the community or the pillar of the genre, right?
Yeah. And you're right. That multiplayer aspect is where that game sells. And it's interesting because we have 4 very different companies on this list of games, right? You have the origins of the beat 'em ups with Technos and Data East, right? You have your Kung Fu Master, your Double Dragon, and all that. And then you have your Konami fighters, which are mostly focused on 3 or 4 players. And then you have the Capcom beat 'em ups, which are also iconic. Yeah. So we have the different groups, which is very interesting. I think I'm going to just throw out, but we're not talking about the best games in the genre. We're talking about the ones that define it. The death of the genre is Die Hard Arcade. How do you guys feel about that one being one?
I would agree with that. I would put that on the pillar because it's the end of a legacy, like in my personal opinion. It's so weird because I don't feel bad about putting that one on there. I don't feel bad about it taking up a spot from any one of these other fantastic games because it was, to my recollection, and we're not saying this is the truth and the gospel, but to my recollection, I don't remember anything else coming after this that was that as good as this was. Like, this was the last legacy.
Okay, I can go with this. I am greatly pained, and I am going to. But both of these I brought up as nominees. I am greatly pained that D&D Shadow over Mystara is on there and Golden Axe isn't.
Yeah, that's hard.
Golden Axe
I think Shadow over Mystara actually did Golden Axe better. Like, I really do.
But I mean, we're talking the Renegade Double Dragon argument. That's your stance. It would be D&D over Golden Axe.
But I mean, how epic was Golden Axe, right? I mean,
there's 3 Golden Axe. Aren't there 3 Golden Axes? I don't know if
2.
At least.
I know that there's Golden Axe, and then there's like the end of Death Adder or something was the second one, and then there was a second one for the console, and I thought there was a third one for the console.
There is a third one where the dwarf rides a giant, actually, in the third one. I'm just gonna put down here for now so we can talk about it because that one's a hard one. Because
I mean, what arcade did you go to that didn't have Golden Axe, right?
The place that I played Alien versus Predator also had Golden Axe and Smash TV.
Yeah.
Those were the 3 arcades that was at that round table. And I was like eating good here. It also had the RC Pro-Am one too. That was the little cars that you drive. I can't remember which one it was, but
I'm not saying it replaces it, but I think it's a fight. It's a beat 'em up between those two.
So we'll get back to that one. Is there anything else on the short list that we think belongs in the conversation of the four? Like
Not
I
seeing
really
Alien
like
vs. Predator up here
X-Men, but
is
I think I'm with you guys where you guys are right. I think it's TMNT, X-Men, or Simpsons, not more than one of them.
No,
I hate
agree.
it, but I think you guys are right with TMNT.
I agree. And not seeing AVP on there really, but it's so much more filler. I mean, AVP is just filler. It's didn't do anything that stood out enough for it to be a paid a homage to it, other than just taking a really cool alien concept and turning into a beat 'em up. But other than that, it's not like, oh, this is definitely everybody in this Deus is like,
Right.
yes, absolutely that. No, it
Right.
can't be that way. So
I'm gonna say if you haven't played, if you're listening and you haven't played any of these that are on the short list, not the
we'll play them
pillars,
all. Yeah,
go play them all. Like
yeah, absolutely.
every single one of these is good. By the way, I just thought of something. Kung Fu Master. We need to have another pillar of that because Rastan would be a competitor for Kung Fu Master.
So that's where you get into, is it a beat 'em up or is it a platformer? And
I mean,
right?
Alter
And that's-
Beasts.
Alter Beast is another one. That's why I'm
Yeah,
like, I
I
didn't
mean,
want to
all
see Alter
these-
Beast on this list because I think
Contra.
that's more of a platformer.
No, I'm
Yeah.
just saying we need to have one
Yeah.
of these for like
Yes.
the side scroller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rastan's is a
agreed.
classic. You're right.
Yeah.
We should do another
I
episode.
hear
with-
that music in
with
my
this.
head right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're saying the four pillars that define the
Yeah.
genre. All right. So we have something old. We have something new.
Yeah.
Something
We have
borrowed
something
and something
multiplayer.
blue. Are we getting married?
And something
The hell's
newish.
going on here?
I think the conversation then is, if we're defining the four things that define a genre, you have the end of the genre as far as I'm concerned in arcades. I know there's beat 'em ups
I'm
after
there.
that, but
I'm there.
right. But this is when we had the trend was fighting games, not beat 'em ups anymore. You have, I think, is probably, you guys are right, the best of the multiplayer 4-player cabinets,
Yeah.
and then you have a really solid Capcom beat 'em up with a whole lot of extras, multi-pass, a lot of great stuff. And then we need a one to represent the older generation of beat 'em ups. So I think the conversation I would say we have is it Golden Axe or Double Dragon?
Mm.
Ooh.
Right?
You just swapped it on me.
See, so then now I would argue that Golden Axe is better than Double Dragon.
I'm there. It's a better game.
Yeah. Because I realized
it a-
that it's not, because Double Dragon is not the one that started the genre. That was Renegade,
No.
but we're saying we're not going to do Renegade. It's the second one in the genre, or I don't know if there's other ones. But yeah, I think Golden Axe is also very early. Like, what is the years on these? I'm going to look that up.
I want to say 90, 89 or 90.
Golden Axe is
earlier.
probably going to be
You think it's earlier than
87, 86,
Really?
87. That's what I'm going to
think
guess.
it's later than that.
Double Dragon is 87.
Okay.
Double Dragon, yeah.
And Golden Axe came after it. So
It has to be 88, 89, 90. One of those three.
89. So 89.
Okay.
So still an 80s game, right? Because I think that's clear, right? You have the 80s, then you have the 90s, and then
yeah.
I think it was 96 was Die Hard Arcade. It was not as new as I thought it was.
I'm going to go in the stance that I feel like Double Dragon is more popular because of the NES cart.
Yeah.
And not as popular in the arcade format. I think more people have played it on Nintendo than they did in the actual arcade.
That's
Especially
true.
people yours and my age, Jake. No offense, Sinistar, but I don't know. I never saw. I can't honestly say. You're just older than us, and that's not supposed to be a snap at you. You've probably been to the arcade and seen it, where we never got around to seeing it because we didn't see it we saw it on our consoles first. Golden Axe I've seen in the arcade. I've played in the arcade numerous times. I don't think I've ever played Double Dragon or seen it until way later when I went to like a retro themed arcade in my area and was like, oh. But I think Golden Axe is just more prevalent than Double Dragon, the arcade, not the game, but the arcade. So I have to go with Golden Axe. And as you can see, there's a theme here of very fantasy-esque type love between D&D, Golden Axe, TMNT, and Die Hard being the only one that is not a fantasy version game that we have in here.
Well, with the
just me,
soft
though. You guys
rockets,
can
maybe
totally
it is
flip.
fantasy.
Well, you got your low impact RPG helmet.
They were Nerf guns. They were Nerf
Nerf
guns.
I played a lot of Nerf guns. You
I think
guys
you
can
bring up a
flip
good
the
point,
script on
though.
me on that, but that's my
No,
argument.
I think I agree with you. In that Double Dragon, when I think of that game, for me, it will always be the Master System version that I played as a kid. That's where my memories are. I did
Mhm.
play it in arcades, and I didn't like it because it wasn't the home console version I was used to.
Okay.
And I think if we're looking at arcade specifically beat 'em ups, then
Yeah.
I think Golden Axe is better. If this was a category, if we were talking about best beat 'em ups, period, or console beat 'em ups, I think it's a very different conversation when it comes to Double Dragon
yeah,
and Golden
absolutely.
Axe.
Absolutely.
Okay. I can go with that. And honestly, I'm not going to feel bad if Golden Axe replaces Double Dragon. I'm not. I think Golden Axe is the better game. I love Double Dragon. Don't get me wrong. I love Double Dragon, but you're right. That left-right attack thing is just weird.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that wasn't there on the NES. So yeah.
It's not that it wasn't hard enough all fucking ready that you had to put that shit in there too.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I
So is this
love
our
the
list?
magic system. I love the magic. We have two with great magic systems.
That's true.
So,
I think this is a decent list. I think it's a decent list. I think there could be an argument for Golden Axe and D&D both being on here. I could see that. But I think TMNT is the top out of the three or four multiplayer ones that we selected. D&D is just got so much uniqueness to it that it kind of has to, it holds its own. It's and it's a D&D game. Like it's not like it's taking from anything other than what the book's designed for it.
Right.
And it does cool shit. Like Jake said, multiple paths, magic systems, multiple class and party members that you can play as. It's a cool game. And I've played it, and I loved playing it. It's a great one. Die Hard, End of an Era, completely agree with that one. And Golden Axe being kind of the door opening for a lot of us in the beat 'em up genre.
It's kind of the culmination of all the great things on beat 'em ups.
Yeah.
You got to ride things, you got weapons, you got, I mean, it was magic system. Yeah.
A
little bit of platforming.
If I'm really going back into my mind palace and really digging deep, I want to say Golden Axe was the first ever beat 'em up that I played and I saw, like way back.
Okay.
Yeah, at the pizza place that I frequented.
How great was it when there was like those cliffs that you had to jump, the empty spaces, and you'd miss? How great was that?
I see
that was the first view of arcade gaming at its finest.
I see you stealing shit from them, Battletoads, you fuckers.
Yeah.
Placement jumping.
Gosh.
In a beat 'em up.
All right. Well,
if we did a console version of this, we'd have to talk about Battletoads being on there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Streets of Rage, Battletoads, all those. Cyborg Justice.
Okay. Yeah.
Terrible game, but I loved it.
All right.
Would not be one of the four pillars.
So I also like that we have a Sega game in Golden Axe. D&D was Capcom. TMNT was Konami. Those are the big hitters for arcades. Die Hard Arcade was also Sega, but it was also a later generation, so it's a bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we're locking it in. There's nothing to change. So according to Press B to Cancel, if you're brand new to the beat 'em up genre, the four games that define that genre, the pillars that hold it up, are Golden Axe, Dungeons and Dragons: Shadow over Mystaria, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Die Hard Arcade. That's a pretty good list, guys.
That's decent.
If you see any of these in an arcade, try them out.
Shit, if you see anything out of our list in an arcade, please go and peruse and throw some coins and see what you get.
Yeah, if you just want some insanity, throw on some Cadillacs and dinosaurs. If you want to fight aliens, AVP, man, all day long.
It's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. And like Sinister said earlier, if you feel as a game we missed, I'm sure we missed a few, then please let us know. Drop a comment on the YouTube video or come to our Discord. You can find links at pressbtocancel.com or pressb.org. And again, you can find our podcasts wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts and shows, from Amazon Music to Spotify and anywhere else. And of course, we're also on YouTube. Before we say goodbye, Sinistar, you want to shout out anything you're doing? Or
I'm
playing?
finishing up moving.
That's right. Assembling the wall. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, it's making progress. I got rid of Bard's Tale because those are trash games. Trash games.
Wow. Not on the pillar.
Yeah. No, I don't really have anything going on besides this because we are getting our old house sale ready. But once that's done, I'm going to work on. This actually is the wrong wall. I'll be on the other wall of my office once I get things going.
We're going to see some Spinistar come back here in coming months.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah. All right. And Chard, how about you? What have you been up to lately?
Finished up Alan Wake 2 last weekend. Great game. Very interesting. It's a good game. I really enjoyed it. Some of the combat got me a little pissy, not going to lie, but the story was very unique. The design and the gameplay itself was exceptionally unique. I really had a good time playing that one. Probably going to do some feel good in December and go back to Dead Space Remake because I've been itching to play that one again. And then we've got Sisyphean games that we have been discussing.
Yeah.
Eventually we'll be firing up the next set of Sisypheans, and I might be doing a 2 for next year, a back-to-backer.
You gonna Battletoads it like I did? Is that what you're gonna do?
I've already batched Battletoads. That game can't hurt me anymore. I'm done with it.
I want to call out that our listeners should join us. You should be thinking about your Sisyphean game for 2025.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Probably towards the end of the month of December, you might hear an episode about us talking about it. We're still trying to get all the ducks in a row and select, and some of us are still trying to finish their Sisyphean games before the year's end. But
yeah,
I'm excited. I've got some really good choices. I've one of these episodes, guys, if you are okay with this or down with me, I'd almost like our team, our listeners, to almost pick our Sisyphean games, and we throw up like 2 or 3 of them.
You nuts?
And then they can pick out of those 3.
So we generate our own list.
No. I'm not gonna come to you and be like, "Oh, you got to play Die Hard Arcade."
I was not gonna finish Circus Charlie.
No. I mean, you would select like 3, and then we'd throw it up on the Discord, and then
Superman 64 right there
on what they want to see out of that. That'd be kind of neat, but that's for a later time because I have things that I want to finish.
Yeah. So when we say Sisyphean game, that's the game that you feel like you should have beaten from your youth, or a game that you've always wanted to beat and try, just never made time for. It's kind of the excuse to kind of buckle down and play through it. For me personally, because I picked Battletoads last year and I was not able, sadly, to beat it after months of trying, I had to spin the Wheel of Pain, and I still owe my playthrough, my 2 hours of penance playing Buck Bumble. So I got to figure out how I'm going to do that and when I'm going to do that. I want to do it before we do the Sisyphean episode. And then, like you said, Wolf is finishing Okami. It sounds like for this year, everybody beat their game, which is nice because I don't have to make a wheel. I don't know how to make that Wheel of Pain.
And I beat our game in like February. So
yeah.
We were overachievers. We were overachievers.
Yeah, you guys gave me a reprieve, and I got to switch my game to Elden Ring, which was not an easy switch, but I managed to get through it. So,
right.
Yeah. So we'll do a Sisyphean episode later this month, and then we'll figure out some other stuff to do for during the holidays. But I think that's an episode, guys. This is good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We are Press Me to Cancel. Till next week.